My brother leaned against the kitchen counter like a drunk king, arms crossed, smirk already loaded. Dad stood beside him, chin raised as if this was some courtroom they presided over. "Pack your things and leave," my brother repeated. "That inheritance belongs to us." I didn't sit. I didn't blink. My name is Avery Cole. I'm 33, and if you think this is about money, you have no idea what's coming. My husband had been buried less than 14 hours earlier. 14. I still had the scent of lilies and wet soil on my clothes. I still had dried mascara on my cheeks from the graveside. They didn't care. Grief doesn't soften greedy people. It activates them. Dad tossed a cheap duffel bag at my feet. "Your husband's lawyer will obviously transfer the accounts to the men in the family," he said, voice casual, like he was reciting a grocery list. "That's how these things work." "We'll manage it," my brother added, his mouth twisted in fake sympathy. "You'll get whatever we decide you need. Relax. You'll be taken care of." I almost laughed. Almost. Because here's the thing. They didn't know. The $200 million wasn't new money. My husband and I had been restructuring assets for months. Legal trusts, separate holdings, property converted, all protected under Italian jurisdiction. And the villa in Lake Como, already titled, already notarized, already wired to me. Not one penny, not one brick could be accessed by anyone but me. Dad snapped his fingers in front of my face, irritated that I wasn't reacting. "Hey, we said get moving." I looked at both of them like strangers I'd simply outgrown. And right then, in that exact breath, I made my decision. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. That was the part that scared them. I walked to the sink, poured myself a glass of water, and took a slow sip. Calm enough to make my brother shift uncomfortably, as if he suddenly wasn't sure who held the power in the room. Dad slammed his palm on the table. "Do you hear me? We're not asking you. That money is family money. Your husband is dead. You don't get to make decisions now." There it was. The root. Not grief. Ownership. They never saw me as a daughter, just a walking ATM waiting for their turn. I finally set the glass down. "When did I ever say the inheritance existed?" I asked quietly. Dad froze. My brother blinked, confused. "You think we're stupid?" he barked. "We heard the numbers. We saw the news article. We know he was worth hundreds of millions. Lawyers will call, accounts will transfer, that money will be ours." Plural. Will be ours, not even a hypothetical in their minds. "Well, then you should relax and wait." Dad stepped closer. "Don't play games. You'll sign over anything that comes." He thought I had access to a safe or a briefcase full of bonds. He thought I needed him to approve anything. But the Italian villa was already mine, the crypto account already transferred, the offshore assets already sealed, the trust itself already irrevocable. I slid my phone into my pocket and grabbed my coat. "Where do you think you're going?" my brother spat. I looked him dead in the eye. "To make sure I never have to hear either of you talk to me like this again." I grabbed my car keys. I walked toward the front door. Dad laughed behind me, a short, ugly bark. "You think you can just run? You're nothing without this family. Nothing." I paused with my hand on the doorknob, just long enough to let the moment settle. Funny how people who contribute nothing believe they own everything. My brother added, voice dripping with smug confidence, "You'll be back. When those lawyers tell you the accounts belong to the male heads, you'll crawl back. So go pack your drama. We'll wait." I turned slowly. "Wait for what?" I asked. Neither answered because they genuinely didn't know how the real world works. They only understood entitlement, not legality. And then my phone buzzed. The lock screen lit up with the incoming call. ID, A.R. Riccardo DeSantis, Studio Legale Milano, my late husband's Italian estate attorney. Dad and my brother both leaned forward like addicts hearing a dealer's name. I answered it on speaker. Avery. Ricardo's voice filled the room, calm and sharp like a surgeon's scalpel. The trust has been released. Everything is finalized. And as you instructed, the documents confirming the irrevocable structure have been delivered to your private email. Dad blinked. My brother swallowed hard. Ricardo continued. No one, no relative, no court, no third party has any legal claim. The villa and liquid assets are exclusively yours. I also advise you to formally notify anyone attempting interference immediately. I met my brother's eyes as I replied, steady. Thank you, Ricardo. Exactly as planned. Then I ended the call. Dad's face went gray. My brother's lips twitched with dawning panic. Now they understood. They hadn't been waiting for money. They had been waiting for a power they would never touch. I opened the door. I'm not the one who needs this house. And I stepped outside. The cold air felt cleaner than anything inside that house ever had. I walked down the steps, calm because when you finally detach, there's no adrenaline, no shaking, no rage. It's just clarity. Behind me, the front door swung open. My brother stormed out onto the porch. So what now? You're just leaving? You're just going to abandon family? There it was, the final weapon entitled families always default to, guilt. I turned slightly, just enough to see him over my shoulder. You don't get to call it family when you only show up for the money. Dad walked out next, slower, like the weight of the last 30 minutes had finally settled into his knees. He wasn't shouting anymore. He looked afraid, not of losing me, but of losing access. Avery, he said, voice slower than I'd ever heard it. Don't make this irrevocable. I exhaled. It already is. Because here's the truth. They didn't break me today. They just revealed themselves without disguise. My husband's lawyer had handled the inheritance. There was nothing left to discuss. No loophole, no bargaining chip, no leverage. My brother pointed toward the driveway. Where are you even going? And this time, I actually smiled, because the answer was so beautifully simple. To the life he left for me, not the life you think you own. I pressed the unlock button on my car key. The headlights flashed in the driveway. Dad took one step toward me, an instinct, a last attempt to say, just think for a moment. He whispered. I shook my head gently. I already did. I opened the driver's door, and for the first time since the funeral, I felt free. I drove straight to the airport. It felt surreal how automatic everything was, like my body had already accepted the next chapter before my mind even finished grieving the last one. In the private lounge, I sat near the window while the ground crew prepped the flight. The staff knew who I was. They offered condolences quietly, respectfully, not like scavengers sniffing for inheritance crumbs. I checked my email. Ricardo had already sent the documents. Every line of code in those contracts was iron. Every transfer irreversible. My name, and only my name, etched on every title, every account, every international asset. Then I opened the encrypted folder marked Como. The photos loaded. The view from the balcony. Silver blue water, the Alps rising like ancient guardians. My future wasn't waiting. It already existed. I glanced at my phone again. 28 missed calls, 17 voicemails, 5 texts saying, we're family, don't forget us. 2 saying, we didn't mean it that way. And 1 that finally dropped the mask. Don't be stupid, you owe us. There it was. Not grief, not love, but just entitlement. And what people think they deserve reveals more than any apology ever could. The attendant approached. "Miss Cole, we're ready to board." I stood, calm, not triumphant, not devastated, just done. My husband once told me, some doors aren't meant to be shut gently. Some need slammed, so the echo reminds you never to reopen them. I tucked my phone into my bag. No ringtones, no notifications, no backward pull. And I walked toward the jet bridge, toward a life I earned without their permission. When the jet door sealed and the engines built that slow, confident roar, I exhaled deeper than I had in years. Not a shaky breath, a clean one. I wasn't flying away from my life. I was flying toward the one I built with my own 2 hands. Halfway through the flight, the Wi-Fi connected. Dozens more messages loaded, each one uglier than the last. My father: "We raised you. You can't abandon us like this." My brother: "You think you're strong? Let's see what you do when we show Mom those documents." And then my sister, the one who always pretended she understood me, sent just 3 words: "You're nothing alone." I stared at that one the longest, not because it hurt, but because it showed what they genuinely believed. They didn't see me. They saw an ATM with a pulse. And I finally understood. Their love was never love. It was dependence disguised as loyalty. I closed the screen. The flight attendant set a cup of jasmine tea on my tray, her voice soft. "Is there anything else you need, Miss Cole?" I smiled. "No, I'm finally fine." Outside the window, the sky was black velvet dotted with silver, an expanse that demanded nothing from me. I leaned back and remembered being 19, studying in a library bathroom because I was working 2 jobs and had no quiet place at home. I remembered being 25, wiring money and convincing myself that someday they'd see my worth. I remembered being 31 at a funeral, finally seeing that they never would. As the clouds drifted beneath us like slow waves, one thought settled into place like armor. I didn't lose my family. They lost me. We landed in Italy just before sunrise. Cool morning air, faint smell of lake water, soft light touching the mountains like the world was exhaling with me. Ricardo was waiting at arrivals. Suit, clipboard, quiet confidence. We didn't need small talk. He simply handed me the final envelope. "Everything's recorded. They can't touch a cent," he said. I signed the notarization, the last legal detail. It took 14 seconds. 14 seconds to close a 20-year chapter. We drove in silence to the villa, the new house, my house. White stone, old wood shutters, flowers growing wild over the terrace, a place that didn't know my pain. Inside, the view opened wide, water glittering all the way to the horizon. I walked straight to the balcony and stood there. No phone in my hand, no notifications, no emotional leash around my neck anymore. Just quiet. Then a knock behind me. A house staff member held out a phone. "It's ringing. Unknown number." I already know. I took it slowly. "Hello?" My father's voice, weak. Not angry, not screaming, just small. "Come home." I closed my eyes for a moment. I remembered being 10 when hearing his voice felt safe. But that version of him didn't exist anymore. And the one on the phone wasn't calling because he cared. He was calling because he finally understood what he had lost. I looked out at the lake, sunlight finally hitting the water like a broken diamond field. I didn't shout. I didn't explain. I simply said, "Home is where I'm respected." And I hung up. Not in victory, not in spite, but in peace. The next morning I woke before sunrise. No alarms, no heaviness in my chest, just the quiet hum of a new place learning my name. The lake looked like melted gold, still, soft, infinite. I made espresso, opened the terrace doors, and sat barefoot on warm stone while the world slowly brightened. My phone lay beside me face down, not because I was afraid of calls, but because I wasn't waiting for anyone anymore. Around 9:18 a.m., the first calls came. Unknown numbers, then their names, my brother, my father, my aunt. Then messages. Call us, please. We didn't understand that it's actually gone. Talk to us. Let's fix this. We made a mistake. They weren't apologizing to heal anything. They were apologizing because the faucet dried. Money wasn't flowing their way anymore. And they didn't know how to breathe without it. Do you know what surprised me? There was no adrenaline, no shaking, no thrill, just clarity. This wasn't revenge. This was correction. I walked down to the little stone dock and dipped my feet in the water. Cold, sharp, alive. Birds from the olive trees swooped low over the surface, chasing each other. The way life keeps moving even when humans get stuck in the same old pain loops. I let the water numb my toes. Then I turned my phone screen up. One final text from Dad. Come home. I typed slowly, not angry, not bitter, just honest. Home is not where I'm used. It's where I am cherished. Then I archived all their threads. No blocking, no deleting, just placing their voices in a drawer I would never open again. I stood, wrapped a linen shawl around my shoulders, and walked back toward the villa, toward a life they never saw from me, but one I finally claimed for myself.